Well, a 2-0 lead was right there. It was right there, and the Tigers couldn't come through. However, they still split in Seattle and come to Detroit with a 1-1 series in the ALDS. We'll talk about that and more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Monday, October 6th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen. Every single day, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Happy Monday, everybody. The Tigers played 2 games in the American League Divisional Series this weekend, otherwise known as the ALDS, for those keeping track at home. They split. In Seattle, both of these games were played. Both were 3-2 final scores. One is in favor of the Detroit Tigers. The other is in favor of the Seattle Mariners. Now you're heading to Detroit for games 3 and 4 with a series tie. My first thought coming out of game 2, coming out of the weekend, is that, A, this is like very high-intensity, fun baseball to watch with great pitching. The Mariners are, I know the numbers maybe were a little bit of a letdown from what people like myself were expecting out of them, but that's only because expectations were so unbelievably high. This is an incredibly talented pitching staff. It's an incredibly talented rotation. It's a great bullpen, especially the back end there. There's a lot of really good pitchers that are going to be in this series. Obviously, Detroit featured one of the best pitchers in the sport in game 2, maybe the best as well. I think it's also apparent in the same breath that these two offenses so far in this series have actively been trying to take home the crown for I pissed off my fan base more today. It's like they have like a little side bet going, and they're like, hey, who can make their fan base literally cry of anger just from our offensive production tonight? Because in game 1, the Mariners had so many opportunities to come back and still win that game, and they just didn't take advantage of any of them. And the Tigers honestly did that in both games, but obviously played from behind for most of game 2, and you could say the exact same thing. It's obviously very disappointing to lose game 2 because you had chances to win. Like, I know it's a super simple statement, but it's super simple statement. A lot of S's there. But it's true, right? Like you in playoff baseball, these are such small sample sizes, right? It's a 5-game series. It's the first team to 3 wins, man. You can do that in a weekend in the regular season. So it's such small sample sizes. You cannot afford on a consistent basis to let games like that slip through the cracks. They had the upper hand, I think. They just couldn't get a clutch hit to save their lives yet again. And they've been doing that for the last 2 months pretty much consecutively with very few breaks in between. They just completely lost the clutch gene after about July, really June. Now, that also being said, there's a lot of things being said here already. A split is still super productive and honestly sets the Tigers up wonderfully in these last 3 games of the ALDS. The good from the weekend is, again, that the pitching was solid and you've kept a very good Mariners lineup at bay so far, even if it is also kind of, maybe their own shortcomings at times as well. I don't care. I'm looking for playoff wins. I don't really care how the Tigers get them. The bad news, again, obviously the Tigers are still allergic to clutch hitting. So let's talk about what went. What do we start with? We split. What do we start with? Let's start with what went right. Why not? We'll have some positive vibes here early, because I ultimately I'm going to try to justify it now. Ultimately, I do think that splitting is extremely beneficial, and again, it gives the Tigers, like, you really could easily argue the Tigers have the upper hand in the series just from an optics perspective in these final 3 games, simply just because they won one of the first 2 games in Seattle. They have home field now, and they can still throw Tarik again. So that's why we'll start with what went right. Winning game 1 is obviously something that went very right this weekend. Fantastic pitching performances across the board, and Kerry Carpenter continues to dominate George Kirby. I want to start with the pitching because I felt like it was almost an unsung hero. Carpenter got a ton of flowers. He deserves it. We'll talk plenty about the greatness that Kerry Carpenter displayed in that ball game in a little bit, but the pitching was so stellar. You have Troy Melton, who starts this game. He's a rookie, starting game 1 of the ALDS, goes 4 innings, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, and 1 home run. Obviously, was a couple of feet from 2 home runs, laughed it off because he's, I don't know what. He's a dog. He's an absolute dog. I loved what I saw from him in this outing. The biggest concern that I had, and I know a lot of people have already pointed this out, but we talked about it a little bit last week, and we talked about it during the regular season, right? We talked about it after his outing in Cleveland in the wild card round as well, is he has a tendency sometimes, because he can throw 100, to just get too fastball heavy. And I was worried that against a really good lineup like Seattle, that they would take advantage of that. They also were super aggressive early in counts with him, and he I thought was phenomenal, man. Like, this guy's going to be really good, and he's a guy that maybe isn't a household name even in Detroit at this point, but certainly is not a household name across the league, and I really do think that within a couple of years he will be. I am very excited about the future of Troy Melton, and I hope that next year he goes into spring training stretched out as a starting pitcher so that we can see a full season of him as a true starter. He goes 4 innings, only gives up 1 run. In a playoff game, when you're the underdog, you can't really ask, in my opinion, for too much more out of a rookie in that moment than what he provided. So tip of the cap to Troy Melton. But then the bullpen was also the star of the show. Brant Herter, Tyler Holden, Tommy Kahnle all throw perfect innings. They all have perfect outings, I should say. I think Kahnle maybe didn't technically go 1, but either way, they all throw perfect baseball and do not allow a single base runner between the 3 of them combined. Fantastic. Brant Herter is legitimately proving to be a menace against lefties. And that was something we already knew during the regular season. We talked about it nearly every time he pitched, but he did get optioned in the second half of the season. And is back. He's hitting his spots a lot more. I don't know how any left-handed hitter ever hits him. That's how good that slider, that long slider that just seems to last forever, is low and away against left-handed batters. So tip of the cap to him. Holton, obviously, also a lefty, did really well. And then Kahnle, I think the changeup continues to look a lot better from what it was there at one point in the regular season. Then you have Finnegan and Vest. They go shutout ball. Will Vest goes 2 innings of perfect baseball, man. Just a guts on the table, big dog performance, as we become accustomed to. He has just been such a great story for the Tigers this year. Has been arguably their most valuable reliever from opening day till right now, right? If you're going across full body of work there, he's been absolutely fantastic, and in the postseason has been lights out. And they desperately need that. But then the game ends with Cater Montero. We will talk about that extra innings save right after this. First, though, I got to talk to you all about our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, you put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. There's so many great features over at FanDuel. I love how it gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little bit of something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back tomorrow with an off-day show previewing the rest of the series, obviously. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm not in my normal setup because I have moved. First night, day, whatever, in not the place that I've lived for the last 2 years. So that is why I'll get it all set up. If you can probably see some of it on the ground, all of my background stuff. Yeah, here we are. So excuse the barren, just like all white, boring room. We will get that fixed up here, hopefully by the end of the week. The Tigers are going to be playing at Comerica Park at least, well, actually, both games are guaranteed now, no matter what happens. There will be 2 postseason baseball games in the city of Detroit at Comerica Park this week, and that's super exciting. That's because the Tigers split this weekend. We're obviously talking about what went right still. I want to end in the pitching side of things in game 1 by giving Kader Montero his flowers, man. His first career save. Just remarkable. And this is something that AJ's been very keen on for a while, really ever since he took over as manager of the Tigers. He has constantly preached anybody in this bullpen can be used in any situation, and they should all be prepared to do such. And I think that this is obviously the perfect example of that. This was not a great outing eye test-wise for Kader Montero. There was a lot of pitches over the heart of the plate, but that is why throwing strikes is so important. That is why throwing strikes is better than throwing balls. Like, the hitter still has to earn it, and you can get away with throwing the ball middle sometimes. I mean, Lord knows, if you're a Tigers fan, you've watched middle pitches thrown to our offense constantly the entire second half and postseason not get hit at all, and honestly swung and missed that more times than not. So, like, this is an awesome story and moment for Kader Montero. Gets the save in the 11th inning. No Manfred runner in the postseason. Thank you. But Kader Montero getting an extra inning save in the American League Divisional Series for the win is just fantastic. Kerry Carpenter is also fantastic. Goes 1 for 5 with the big 2-run home run, obviously. He is now, as I'm sure everybody listening to this knows, because the stat was just said over and over again, 5 for 11 with 5 home runs against George Kirby in his career. That is unbelievable. And I genuinely mean unbelievable. That's not a hyperbole. That is, I do not believe that. But it is true. The interesting thing with Kerry Carpenter, I think, so far, really this whole postseason, but certainly in these first 2 games as well, is that AJ is not pinch hitting him when a lefty comes in early. Now, that also, I think there's 2 sides to that coin. One is he's been, not great against lefties, but like he has a couple of moments against lefties this year. But I think the much bigger thing here is obviously that he wants to make sure Kerry Carpenter has a bat in his hands late in a ball game when the Mariners are going to their hard-throwing righties. Then they have good lefties too. It's, again, a good pitching staff kind of top to bottom. but the guys that they're going to consistently go to in the 8th and 9th inning are both right-handed. And so I think that that is going to make it kind of this weird scenario where AJ would probably love to have Jahmai Jones hit a lot more, but is probably going to be left with a choice of, okay, do I pull whatever lefty is up at bat right now when Seattle brings in a left-handed pitcher for themselves, and then take the bat out of these guys' hands in the 9th inning when it's almost assuredly a righty, and the 8th and 9th inning when it's almost guaranteed to be a righty. So it'll be interesting to see how that's navigated, but it looks like early on it just means that there's going to be less pinch hitting in the middle of the game. There's still going to be plenty in the final 3 innings if the situation presents itself. Zach McKinstry, really cool for him to have that moment as well, getting the game-winning RBI hit in the top of the 11th in Game 1. What a season he'll be able to like tell his family about, man, and tell his kids and grandkids about. Like, he was an all-star this year and then got a game-winning hit in a playoff game. Like, what a just wild, and he's been brutal at the plate in the second half. Okay, I'm not trying to say that it's just been all sunshine and rainbows, right? The last 2 months he has, barely hit his weight, but this was a great moment. He came through. He didn't strike out on a curveball that bounced on home plate. Sigh of relief. Awesome moment. Tip of the cap to Z-Mac there. Tarik Skubal, on the side of things that went right. I know, like, some people I saw out there were literally saying, like, this is a failure for Skubal because he should be throwing a shutout literally every time he steps on the mound. He has a 1.84 ERA in the postseason this year. He went 7 innings, 2 runs, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. The 2 runs were both solo homers. It's not like people were on base and they broke the game open. And like the second one was a bad pitch. That is just a terrible 2-strike pitch. And I'm sure Tarik would tell you the same thing. That's obviously not where he wanted that. But like he shoved, dude. And he is just so far down on the list of reasons why the Tigers lost that ball game. I just adamantly disagree with that opinion. That I don't think the whole fan base thinks that, but I did see that opinion thrown out there online, and I just wanted to point that out. Tarik Skubal was phenomenal in this baseball game and did his job very, very well, as he tends to do. Torkelson, obviously, with a big hit to tie it late in Game 2 as well. That was a really, I think the broadcast crew has been phenomenal. Pierzynski and Wainwright, ironically, when I was a young lad, or 2 of my least favorite baseball players on the planet, not for anything they did as people. I was like 10 years old, but just because, White Sox and Cardinals caused me a lot of pain in my youth as a Tigers fan. But I think they've done a fantastic job, and it's so fun to listen to them talk about the X's and O's and kind of, the pitch strategies when batters are up to the plate. I think they did a great job pointing out that, Torkelson comes through in that moment. He got beat. Like, he was late on that fastball, but the decision to throw a fastball there is just terrible by Seattle. Like, that pitch call is just kind of inexcusable in my eyes. Like, I couldn't agree more with the broadcasters. I don't think that's justifiable in any capacity. Because of what you saw. You have the defense shifted a little bit to pander to a righty. You throw a fastball. If he's on time, he crushes it. If he's late, the best you're hoping for is a foul ball, because then you're just opening up. Like, I completely disagree with that call. And Torkelson takes advantage. And that is what heart of the lineup hitters are supposed to do. It's their only hit with a runner in scoring position the entire game. But in the moment, it tied the ball game, and I think that at bat hopefully does something, positive for kind of his outlook the rest of the series as well, because it'd be really big to get, like, the Tigers have just shown no power this whole postseason, and that's going to bite them eventually, especially against a big, thumper of a lineup like Seattle, or, if they make it past this round, like, Toronto has. Or if you're like a Yankee fan listening to this, sure, we can count you in that too. Obviously, you have more thumpers than Detroit does as well. So That's just something I'd like to see more of. But Torkelson coming through in there is a big moment and a great piece of hitting by him. Brant Herter pitched in both of these games, completely just snuffed Josh Naylor. I think, again, he's so tough against lefties, and I think that he has a lot of value in that regard. So, yeah, ultimately, like, what went right, to summarize it a lot quicker, is just you stole a game on the road, and now you have home field advantage, really. There's 3 games left, and 2 of them are in Detroit. Let's talk about what went wrong. We will do that right after this. Got to talk to y'all about our friends over at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. You can identify that you aren't saving as much in a current area of your life, maybe as you thought. You also can see subscriptions maybe that you forgot about, or maximizing your investments. It's an all-in-one tool. So don't let this financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off of your first year. That's 50% off at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. All right, everybody, welcome back. Your third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, what went wrong? I want to talk about everything that's not Risp here, because that is very clearly the glaring issue from these 2 games, and was the glaring issue from Cleveland as well. So I want to start off with everything besides that I think went wrong, because that's the cherry on top. Finnegan in game 2 was brutal. That was just rough, and ultimately, there's only 1 run given up that inning, which I think tip of the cap to the management and the decision to go to Herter there, obviously, at the end. But he still kind of tightropes his way out of danger there for an even bigger inning and gives the Tigers a chance to at least tie it there at the very end of the ball game. But he was just hanging splitters. And that was a pitch that was so effective for him in the second half. It's a reason he had a 0 ERA the first month that he was a Detroit Tiger, right? He was throwing a lot of splitters, more than he's ever thrown in his career. It's a great pitch when it's not hung thigh high to 2 of the best hitters in the American League, and objectively, I think the 2 best hitters on this baseball team that you're facing. You can hang splitters to a lot of people in baseball, and if you're Kyle Finnegan, you're still going to probably have the advantage more times than not, because it's a really good pitch. You're not going to get away with those 2 pitches to those 2 hitters pretty much ever. And it cost you the game, ultimately. Rafael Montero in game 1. Brutal performance. I need to think of another word besides brutal. Not a very productive performance. He just had no clue where the ball was going, man. It was either a foot out of the zone or right down the middle. And yeah, they pulled the plug early on that, and thankfully still walked out of game 1 with a victory. So Risp that's really the only overarching things that went wrong besides Risp. The reason why is because it is not just 1 or 2 people that are struggling with runners in scoring position. It is the entire baseball team. It's so mind-boggling, man. They are 3 for 17 with Risp. So, it makes it so that the what went wrong segment is shorter by comparison, but it is a bigger problem than maybe anything we've talked about in this entire episode. Because it's the whole team. I'm the only reason it's shorter is because I'm not singling out individuals. It's everybody. 3 for 17 with Risp in 2 games, and they have 26 total strikeouts in 2 games. Those are both Just devastating statistics in playoff games for the team you root for. It'd be one thing if they were 3 for 17 and there were some productive outs happening. Man on second, less than 2 outs. I'm going to ground out, but it's going to be to the right side, and the guy's going to advance to third. Man on first, less than 2 outs. I'm going to get him in scoring position, even if I get out. Here's a sac fly. Okay, those exist. Believe it or not, sac flies actually do still exist in the game of baseball. I know Tigers fans may not believe me, but it is true. I don't even think they had an opportunity to have a sac fly in this game. It's just I couldn't tell you the last one they had. Like, this is it is just so remarkable to see an entire team have zero approach the second that the lights get bright. And they have the potential to score a run. And no matter what happens this postseason, this has to be addressed in the offseason. Now, you don't address Risp specifically. That's not a stat you look at and you go, wow, we need to find, a guy that is like under the radar, really good at Risp. That like doesn't exist. Like, if you're a good hitter, you usually hit with runners in scoring position. If you're not a good hitter, you usually don't, right? The Tigers just have such a glaring strikeout problem that I think if you address that and don't strike out in one of the 4 or 5 highest clips in the entire sport, that you will probably be significantly better with runners in scoring position and score more runs just because you're not striking out and you're at least putting the ball in play. And again, productive outs exist. The best example of failure in runners in scoring position for the Tigers in these first 2 games was immediately after the Tigers tied it in game 2. Spencer Torkelson ties it. He's on second base with 1 out. Dylan Dingler and Wensil Perez go up there and just take 2 of the worst at-bats you will see from either of them in the postseason. Both were brutal, dude. And I love Dylan Dingler more than life itself, okay? He is just the man. That at-bat was devastatingly bad, and Wensil Perez's was astonishingly bad, like impressively almost. The last pitch should still be in the air. That was strike 3 was looking a hanging changeup down the middle, man. Like, that's what people dream about and salivate over. So, yes, Skubal gave up 2 home runs, and that's somewhat out of character, okay? They were both solo shots, and you still had a chance to win it. They had 1 total hit with runners in scoring position the entire ballgame. Gotta be better. Gotta be better. Doesn't matter how good the pitching is, you gotta be better in that regard. I want to talk about the home plate umpiring really quickly. This could go in what went right and what went wrong as well. Game 2, home plate ump, I thought was stellar. Okay. He had 1 really bad call to Riley Green. Outside of that, I think it was pretty fair for both sides. I think his strike zone was pretty consistent, and I think it was pretty solid, Joe. I think it was accurate is the word as well. The Game 1 home plate umpire is one of the worst home plate umpiring performances I have seen from a Major League Baseball game in a long, long time. And his umpire scorecard was just devastating. It was brutal, if you will. Called strike percentage in the 70s. That's well below average. Now, it's not like the worst I've ever seen, okay? The Marlins, was that the 97 Marlins or the 03 Marlins? I think it was 97 Marlins. That one comfortably takes the cake, okay? That will forever be the worst home plate umpiring in a playoff game ever. But that just can't happen, okay? That can't happen. And this isn't like Tigers fan whining either. They won the game. And I thought he was I don't want to say equally bad for both sides. I think the Tigers got the short end of the stick probably a little bit more, but he was still really bad for both teams. And I want to make that abundantly clear as well. The Tigers benefited from a lot of those as well, including in the Kerry Carpenter at bat, had give and take on consecutive pitches. Okay. First playoff win in Seattle in over 20 years. Tip of the cap to the fans out there. ALDS roster, Colt Keith obviously played. This is not news to you at this point, but we haven't talked about it since I've been back on since Friday. So that's awesome. And Brendan Hanafy on the roster as well replaces Paul Sewald. That's a trade-off I would make 10 times out of 10. Hanafy, very good against righties, and the Mariners have some really good righties in that lineup. Justin Henry Malloy leaves the roster for Colt Keith. It kind of just like had to be the odd man out, unless it was, unless it's Trey Sweeney, which for whatever reason it's not. Okay, I want to end with this. As you can tell, I'm really not too devastated about this result, even coming off of and recording right after the Game 2 loss. This is okay. And that's not to say, again, that it wasn't a frustrating Game 2. I was very upset and saying things I can't say on air, okay, at my TV. I was not pleased, and it was a frustrating loss because they had an opportunity to win. Obviously, you are very much in the driver's seat after Game 1, and you have arguably the best pitcher in the world starting Game 2. It would have all but ended the series had you come through in that ball game. Okay. So like I understand the frustration. I'm not saying don't be frustrated in Game 2 in a vacuum. What I am saying is that Game 1, winning that game puts you in just a fantastic spot. It's a 3-game series. 2 of those 3 games are in Detroit, and the one that's not, Tarik Skubal would start. I think just winning one of those 2 games put you in a fantastic position coming home for Game 3 and was a massive, massive, massive deal. It could have been better, and that is frustrating, but this is still a really solid position for the Tigers to be in, and I think that is an important takeaway from these first 2 games. Not getting too high with the highs, okay? They very easily could go out there and just lose the next 2. You don't get to throw Skubal again. The Mariners have the starting pitching advantage, and it is what it is. I'm not saying it's a guarantee the Tigers win, certainly. But they've also put themselves, like I said, in a pretty nice position here heading home. Okay. We'll preview the rest of the series on tomorrow's show. Thanks for making us your first listen every day here at Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in every day, the everydayers that do that. Yeah, I think that's all I got. Playoff baseball, playoff wins. Exciting times, man. Exciting times. Okay. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch you all tomorrow for a postseason preview. That sounds great to say out loud. An ALDS preview. Well, not like the whole series. The final, you get what I'm saying. Go Tigers, baby. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. Catch you all tomorrow. Go Tigers.